Welcome, everybody. I am Steve Dross, and with me, as always, we have Will Kaplan. Will, you know me long enough to know when I see a button, I want to push it.
Yeah, and Steve, this is one of those buttons that I think we all get excited to push just because it usually signifies good things for us, good things for the firm, good things for the people that we work with. We get this question a lot. I mean, I think that this is one of those ones where we keep getting the question and it prompts us to have more of a high level discussion about when to push this button or why you might push this button at different times.
Yeah.
And I know that, I have the way that I might do it. I'm just guessing you have the way that you might do it. And probably a lot of our users have the way that they want to do it. But it's one of those things where it's when you do it has implications for the rest of kind of what's going on inside of Quivr. And so that was the piece that I thought could be interesting for us to talk about today. So do you want to reveal what the is?
Well, I'm assuming the title to this one everybody already knows, but it's leads to prospects. So there is a button in Quivr. When you have a lead, you push a button to convert that lead to a prospect. And it's really interesting because I like to say this often. I say this often. We all operate our firms more or less 80% the same, right? The estate plan process, yeah, I do it differently than you would do it, but it's 80% the same. And we typically have the same step one and the same last step. It's just how do we get from point A to point B? However, leads to prospects and leads in general are something that I have found that is one of the more widely applied features inside of Quivr. And I do think that's why we get maybe more philosophical questions when it comes to how do I utilize leads and at what point do I convert them to a prospect? Is that fair?
I do think that's fair. I mean, obviously I think as advisory firms mature, those that decide to do a lifestyle practice tend to kind of, turn off the spigot a little bit, but you still are capturing that data. I mean, I remember when I was at capacity, I had probably about somewhere between 70 to 80 households, but I was still picking up the phone when people called. I wasn't doing a lot of marketing efforts. I wasn't doing a lot of stuff like that, but I was still willing to talk to people. And if the right client came along, I would make room. And so this is something that I think affects pretty much not just all Quiver users, but all advisors. And so from the philosophical standpoint is for me, what is a lead? What is a prospect definitionally in terms of the process that you're going to apply and in terms of what you're going to do with those things? And okay, great. We can have that conversation and iron that out. But then also how it relates back to the functionality of the platform itself and why you might make some decisions about when to convert versus I'm going to just leave this as a lead or I'm going to convert it right away. There are some limitations there that are sort of external to your process that are more driven by what's going on with the system. How does it work? Does that make sense,
Yeah.
Steve?
No, and let's start with that. Let's start with the definition. Again, there's 1,000 different definitions for these things, but the Quivr right. Quivr has to be founded on our foundation has to be on some level of consistency here. And even if Will's definition is slightly different than this, and I promise you it is, how we view prospects and how we view leads is one simple difference. We want to work with a lead, but the lead doesn't necessarily know we do yet. And the prospect has shown even a little inkling of desire to work with us. So let's go back to your example, Will. When somebody calls you to inquire about your services, they are already a prospect because they are not just a random phone number. They are a prospect.
And I think that's the one that trips up a lot of our users is like, in some cases, one of the things that I really like about Salesforce is there's a lot of functionality to where somebody shows up on my website, they put in their contact information, and they magically show up inside of Quivr as a lead. And what we have to keep in our head though is this person already said they want to work with me.
Or they
It's
were
not
potentially interested in learning
yeah,
more about working with you.
like they're reaching out. It's not something where I got, 10,000 phone numbers and I put them all into my robo dialer and I'm waiting for people to, call me back. This is something that is warm. I shouldn't say warm, but warm-ish, where they've done some of the homework to say, here's a website. I'm going to put my information in. I'm going to send it to Will. Now Will has to do something with it. And so I think that as you look at these definitions, they've almost skipped over lead. They're already in that prospect bucket, but Salesforce is treating them as a lead just definitionally by how the system is set up. And so that I think is a really key understanding to how do these work? How do you want to work with them?
Yeah.
Does
And
that
we'll get into the reason you want them as prospects and leads in the system. But yeah, so a lifestyle practice who is not doing any outbound marketing, odds are you're not going to use leads. But let's look at maybe a firm that is actively trying to grow. For example, a seminar. Well, if you're teaching a Social Security seminar at the local community college, you don't know if people are there purely to learn and they're a DIYer and they want to go do it themselves. They're just genuinely looking for the education. Or if at some point during that seminar, you are now going to get them to sign up for a free tax return analysis or something like that. And as soon as they take that step, they are now showing the potential interest in hiring a third party to assist them with that. And they are now a prospect. So if we look at that example, let's say you advertise for your seminars on Facebook and people are signing up and you get 50 people to sign up. All 50 of those people are leads. You then host the seminar and 10 of them say, I want the free tax return analysis. Those 10 are now prospects. Now, why would we do this? Why do we think that they need to get converted to prospects? Leads are kind of stored on an island inside of Quivr. They're not going to hit your prospect queries. They're not going to certain things. There's going to be less information on them because by definition, you don't have as much information. But another key reason we want to keep them separate, you're going to want to follow up with the prospect more frequently. If the prospect reaches out to schedule a meeting, you're going to call them every day or two. You're going to email them. You're going to try 10 times, right? What does smart assets say? You need to try like 10 times in the first 6 days or something like that. You're going to apply some level of that. A lead though, if you, like you mentioned, the 10,000 numbers you buy, or someone shows up to a seminar and shows zero interest at all, maybe you just want to send them your monthly newsletter. Maybe you're going to treat them differently. So by having them isolated in the system and kind of subset differently, you can treat them differently.
Yeah. And I think that is like that pivot point is an important one where, as you're converting from a lead to a prospect, and I think this is another good thing for us to talk about, there's some things that you can do sort of in that moment. You can create a contact automatically. You can create a household automatically. You can create an opportunity automatically. And I'm going to leave opportunities out of this for today, just because that's kind of a whole other topic to figure out. Some people use, some people don't. When you're bringing that stuff over automatically, as you're clicking that button convert, there's things then that you can sort of do in terms of either reporting or in terms of task management or workflows or things of that nature that are beyond what you would do with a lead. And I think that's an important understanding as part of this process too, that now you've got a little bit more functionality in the system. You might want to be interacting with this person more often. To your point, if I've got a bunch of leads, great. I'm going to grab all those email addresses that they put in the system. I'm going to add them over to my marketing campaign, and I'm going to just, start dripping on them monthly. And if they reach out, great. Now they're going to convert over. Whereas, with a prospect, I'm going to be maybe proactively saying like, hey, Steve, so excited that you attended that seminar. Here's a link to my calendar to where we can, book that first call, those types of things. Or, if you have more questions, here's my contact information. Like you're interacting more with them than just a simple, you're going to get an email a month from me or an email a quarter from me or something along those lines. And you can actually start then getting, richer reporting, more data, more workflows, tasks maybe firing off in the system, things of that nature as well.
And what we're seeing too is another lifestyle, right? If you're not trying to grow, power to you. That's great. Like that's where I am, right? And you're probably not using leads. And honestly, this might not be the most useful form of content that we've created for that person. But if we look at firms that are scaling or larger firms, I mean, specifically the larger firms, like we go back to that seminar, owner or advisor, relationship manager, somebody like that is most likely putting on the seminar. And then maybe another person is there with them, handling questions, trying to get people to sign up for that, free tax return analysis or whatever your value add in that conversation is. And if people do sign up and they move to that prospect, especially at these bigger firms, we see a business development team or a back office team now running with those people. Because it's like, we got to make, like, these are the people we're going to call every day. These are the people we're going to really try hard to get. And then, like you mentioned, those leads are just hanging out at the drip campaign. And they're just, they're getting the monthly newsletter. All is great. And you hope you might get a straggler or two every once in a while, but you don't know if it's going to happen. So even from like an operations perspective, what we would recommend that you did is get a big whiteboard and just design your marketing campaign, design what you want that to look like. And then every single one of those steps that you want to accomplish goes in a workflow. And that way, when you were talking about converting the lead to a prospect, you can automatically have the household created, automatically have contacts created. You can also automatically have workflows being kicked off, automatically have the work that you need to do for that new prospect into the system. And now you have a very regimented and easily followed process for what you want that to do. Now you take it one step further. These bigger firms have, let's say you're doing a seminar a week, 50 people showing up per seminar, 200 leads per month. Maybe you've got 20, 30 prospects a month. And that's not ridiculous. We see firms that are doing this. Well, now you can start reporting on that. Where are all of these prospects? Because you could have 200 legitimate active prospects over a course of 3 months or 4 months. Where are we? Who have we called once? Who have we called twice? Who have we emailed 4 times? Who have we done this? Now imagine as the head of business development or the head of marketing, you can now create dashboards and you can report on this. And this says, show me everything that is going on my prospects. Okay, now what about my leads? Do A/B testing. I now have 7,000 names. I'm not getting anything from these people. We're not converting any of them. And let's say the industry says you should convert 1% of them. I don't know. I'm making up numbers. Do A/B testing. These 3,500 are getting this email. These 3,500 are getting this email. Review that data. Now, boom. Okay, this one got 6 times more people to say yes. Excellent. I got these people over here as the prospects. I'm getting excited about this. And I don't even do business development. I'm not even trying to grow my firm, but it's just an example of how, like, once you understand what leads are, and once you understand definitionally what a prospect is, you can then apply all of that information that you have and all of those things that you want to do for these specific people and just get the heck out of the way and let your system tell you how to implement that marketing strategy.
And I think it's that definition that a lot of our users, we sort of have that intuitive, like, oh, I understand what a lead is and I understand what a prospect is. But it's when you apply it to how Salesforce and Quiver think about the interactions that you're going to have with those individuals that you really start to see some clarity around, like, oh, this should be a lead. This should convert over to a prospect. And, certainly in Quiver, I think one of the really nice things that we have is we have prospects, we have ex prospects. So if you are prospecting with a particular individual and they say, hey, well, I can't stand talking to you, don't ever contact me again. Great, ex prospect. And so then if there's campaigns that I'm running, or if there's things that, events that I'm having or whatever it might be, I'm not going to be reaching back out to that person because they asked me not to. Whereas you might have a really stale, cold prospect that you might continue reaching out to. This might, be something where it takes a couple of years for that prospect to convert, but they're still in the system and they're still reportable.
For sure. And this is a section, like I mentioned at the beginning, where it's not used by everybody. I don't use leads. I do not do it. But we use Quiver to run Quiver. I think we've mentioned that a few times. Somebody schedules a demo inside of, if you go to our website and you schedule a demo, well, definitionally, you're not a lead anymore. You're a prospect because you have scheduled that first call, right? The demo is the equivalent to a 20-minute phone call just to learn more. So you're not a lead. You're a prospective user of Quiver. You're not a lead. However, though, when we go to the XY's conference or we go to Charles Schwab's conference and Schwab, XY doesn't give it to you, but Schwab does, we're going to get however many thousands of attendees at the conference, those are leads, unless they've stopped at our booth and unless they inquired or they scheduled a demo because of that, those people are definitionally leads. So we are going to have them inside of our Quiver environment that we use to run Quiver as leads. And we're going to drip on them. We're going to send them that monthly newsletter that we send all of our potential users, but they're not going to get our Friday update email because I don't think a lead, somebody that randomly attended the Charles Schwab conference, cares that somebody said something in the forums. We're not going to do that. So it's applicable not only to this industry, but also just to, prospecting and business development in general. And Salesforce, remember, Salesforce is used by all industries. It's not just used by financial advisors who we think do real financial planning. So that's why sometimes the definitions and the fact of what this button may do might seem a little bit kind of awkward at times. But once you take a step back and understand philosophically what we're trying to accomplish, our hope is that it's pretty dang clear, pretty dang simple to follow through with. Will, anything else you want to add about the difference between leads and prospects and when you get to push that button?
It's an exciting button to push, right? I mean, I think we all get that rush. I remember early on closing clients was, it just felt like
Best.
it was like every day is the greatest day, right? But yeah, no, we get this question from time to time. I think it's good for people to understand sort of how the system works and why you would want to, when to convert it, why you convert it, and then what you do with it. And I think we've done a good job of kind of talking about that today.
For sure. Again, Quivr users that are out there, if you have questions about, again, like this was a philosophical question about when I should push a button. If you have questions like that, let us know. Get to office hours, submit tickets, reach out to us. We are always happy to have these conversations. I got excited today. I started talking really fast. So that's on me. If you're listening to this at like 1.x, good luck doing that today. Everybody else, if you have questions about Quivr, you want to learn more about the system, come schedule a demo. Come be a prospect inside of Quivr's CRM and learn more about what Quivr can do for you.